Well, now let's introduce ourselves. It's a bit strange this. I was going to start off by saying, unaccustomed as I am to public speaking, but I was an elder and I did give public talk, so I am accustomed to it, although it's a long time. The last time I gave a talk was almost 12 months to the day, and it was to the congregation up in Sheffield, near where we come from. So this is a bit strange, very, very strange indeed. I'm Bill, this is Julia, and what we're going to do is just give you a bit of a background as to where we come from, what it was all about. I was really brought up just like a nominal sort of Church of England. My mum and dad were never interested in religion, I don't think, to that extent, but I was sort of hived off to go to the local Baptist Sunday school, I think it was. I remember getting one of those little Bibles, for good attendance. I don't know how much impact there was to it. I remember some of the stories, and I certainly remember as a child at school really enjoying it. I can remember the teachers being enthusiastic about some of the stories. They always stuck with me, really did, and that I think has held me in good stead. I probably got to be about 13, and it was my sister who was contacted by the witnesses. She's a lot older than me. I think she was married when I was about three or four. I was a little page boy, and she had a bit of a bad time. She had a couple of miscarriages, and a little boy that was born had died after a couple of days. So she was very, very vulnerable. You can imagine kind of the state that she was in. And of course the witnesses knocked on the door, and of course the hope that was there for her was marvellous. You can imagine how she must have felt about it. She lived about 6 or 7 miles away, I think, from me. I was still with my parents, and I think the vicar had been round to see her previous to this, and told her that God wanted her little boy as a flower in the garden, something like that, which had obviously upset her at that time. I can remember her coming to home one night and just crying her eyes out. She was a singer, she used to sing quite a lot, and she was singing one of her favourite songs. It was Summertime, when the living is easy, fish are jumping.
Sing it.
You are joking, you are joking. But there's a phrase in it anyway, it says, hush little baby, don't you cry. And I just remember her just really breaking up at that point, But she's a wonderful woman, is my sister. She became a witness from that point on, and very, very soon afterwards, in fact it was only a couple of weeks, months maybe, that I tagged along. She used to come and visit us, and I would just go to the Kingdom Hall with her. It was almost a natural thing. My parents were more like grandparents in a way, I think, to me, and my sister mothered me. And my brother-in-law was a very able man, wasn't he? Very good speaker as an elder. And so I basically tagged along at 13 years of age. But she taught me, did my sister, from originally it was a little, This Good News of the Kingdom booklet. Some of you may remember that, a little booklet. And then it was the Paradise book, the orange one with all the horrors of Armageddon being destroyed. So I got all that, but I believed it. I really did believe it. I was really brought up like an only child, even though I got 2 older sisters. But I really believed it. And I became a student. I was at school, not that good, really, but when I became a witness, I became really good. I started reading, started reading the classics, reading some of the Robinson Crusoe's and Jules Verne stuff as well as the witness stuff. I really became a student, and by the time I left school, I was virtually top of the school. So I'm not throwing flowers at myself, it's just a reality of how it was. I became a real student. I was also probably a horrible little precocious lad at school. I was the only one in my school as a witness. And I used to go with my suit on and a briefcase, there I was. And I would witness to everybody, the teachers. I had little Bible studies with the lads. I remember one lad in particular, he always sticks in my mind, he was a Pentecostal. And he went to the local Elim church in Bradford. And lovely lad. And he would tell me things, and I would scoot back to the Kingdom Hall, and I would call the presiding overseer at that time, a chap called Tony Gibson. Some of you may have heard of him. He was a Bethelite, and he was a real hard guy, was this chap, I kid you not. I liked him, I had a lot of respect for him, I probably modelled myself on him, as you do as a young person, but he was a hardliner, a hard man. And I would ask him all sorts of questions, and he'd write it all out, and I'd take it back to school and hit this young lad with all this information. And it was deep stuff I'm talking about, really deep stuff. One man who really affected me, who I really now believe was a real Christian in the Kingdom Hall, was a man called Jim Carr. And he exuded something. He did. He exuded love. There was something about him. And I used to sit with him at maybe 14 years of age, and I'd ask him, what's it like to be one of this anointed? I wanted to know, because I just couldn't understand it. What's this thing about the witness, bearing witness with you inside? And he'd read Romans 8 to me. At 14 years of age maybe, this was. And I couldn't get my head around it. I wanted to understand this. And in fact, throughout my life as a witness, and we're only going back to last year, Romans 8 followed me around like a spectre, wanting to understand it. I've always been peeping in from the outside. I remember a memorial talk once, and it was all about why it is that the normal person can't understand about the inner things of God. And it's because it's not written to them. It's written only to the 144,000. It's just this select few, really, who it's directly to. They can understand it. And I always felt like I'm looking through the letterbox, It was a very strange thing, but I always wanted to understand it. So, anyway, I'll just hand you over to Julia, who can probably explain a little bit about her background. It's slightly different, but...
Well, it's a lot different. It's nothing like that at all. I was 11 when my parents started a study with the witnesses, and I just basically went with the flow. I wasn't particularly interested in anything. We never had a study. My mum and dad just had the study. And apparently I've been told that we were given a choice. Would we like to go or would we not like to go? Well, I don't remember that. All I remember is that we all went, and I went with them. And basically that was when I was 11. And up to meeting Billy at 18, I just went along with it. It sounded plausible. They were lovely people. I didn't have a problem with it. Nothing particularly, not the same as Billy. Nothing doctrinal struck me. I just basically went with the flow. And nothing exciting at all happened in that period. Really up until we got married, when we met and got married when I was 19. And we had got married in 1970. We had 3 children in quick succession, 3 boys, everything fine.
I didn't want any kids, by the way, didn't
No, I didn't, no. We were living over in Lancashire at the time. We'd actually moved to Lancashire from Yorkshire because of 75. We decided to downscale everything, didn't we? You left a good job. We got a smaller house. We really did think that 75 was, like Bill was saying earlier on, it was when Billy's parents used to say about the children, have you got them in school? And no, they'll never go to school. And so blasé about it, but yet really believing that it was true. And we moved to Lancashire for that reason, and we were very happy there. It was quite a nice congregation, quite a loving congregation, and we didn't have any problems. We stayed there till 81, by which time we'd got another 2 children, another boy and then a girl. And then it was obviously 1975 came and went, and we just basically got on with our lives then, didn't we? And you got offered a job over in Yorkshire again, so we made the decision to move back to Yorkshire, near Sheffield. And we went to a rural town, where we had some friends that Billy had been brought up with in Bradford. So it seemed an obvious choice to go there. And again, it was a nice small congregation, no problems whatsoever until the boys hit their teenage years. And that's when we really felt it, wasn't it? And I think it was then, if I'm honest, that perhaps, my downward spiral began, because I've always been accused in our family of looking after the underdog. I hate to see injustice. I hate to see people kicked about. I feel quite strongly that if there's an injustice taking place and I can see that they're hurting from it and they're not doing anything about it, I would wade in there and I'd think, right, I'll sort this out. And I was quite vocal and quite, basically because I hated to see people being mistreated. And I don't think it got me, I don't think I did myself any favours, because I think I was viewed as a bit of a bolshy wife, a bit of I wasn't under the thumb. You were viewed as weak because you didn't keep me under the thumb, and it was pathetic really when I think back. But it was how I felt, and I just couldn't. I just felt that people shouldn't be treated like that, and it really did bother me. But then when it came to the onslaught to my own family, that's when I really got I did didn't I? But of course, Billy being the elder, it was I used to say, get them around here, and it's not right what they're doing. It's not scriptural and whatever. And he'd be, he'd be trying to calm me down and saying, well, we've got to go along with it. It's Jehovah's arrangement. And then I'd feel guilty because I felt like I was bulking against the arrangement, and I thought I'd got this thing going on, this war inside me, whereas on the one hand I wanted to do what was right, but on the other hand I felt that a lot of the things weren't right, so I just didn't know how to cope with that. And I think the real turning point for me was when our third boy was 12. And he went into town with a friend, another witness friend who was about 3 years older. And for a dare, the older boy got him to steal something and nothing. It was trivia. And I'm not embarrassed by telling you what it was. But anyway, it was just trivia. And the elders took it out of our hands. They formed a judicial committee, 12-year-old boy that wasn't even baptised, and they put us through so much pain and heartache, us and the other parents of the other boy. And we used to get together and think, how can they do things like this? How it's just so unchristian. And anyway, to cut a long story short, they gave him a public reproof from the platform, which was horrendous. And it just seemed from that time on that our family, because we were quite a big family, it was like they homed in on us, and it was us that were made the example of, and it was our children that was abused in whatever way. And the thing carried on. The other children went through so many judicial committees over just absolute rubbish. And this really upset me. I think for me it was just a continual downward spiral, and just feeling, how can this be God's organisation? It just didn't add up. But like possibly a lot of you here, you just shelve it, you put it to the back of your mind, you think, well, Jehovah will sort it out. Eventually, somewhere along the line, it'll get sorted out. And as you know, it doesn't get sorted out. And we've had some real ups and downs. I mean, honestly, too numerous to mention. We haven't got the time, have we, to tell?
I think it's worthwhile just making a point here that it's only recently that we've really discovered that the reasons why Julie's been a witness And the reasons why I was a witness are completely different. She was brought in as a family, really, part of a family. You got baptised at 11, didn't you, I think? Didn't really remember much about it. I was baptised at, I think, 14 or 15. But I knew exactly what I was doing. I'd read, I'd understood it, I believed it. I went into that water praying to God that, I knew exactly what I was doing. But it was also bound up with the fact that the society was true. The society was the channel. The society was, everything. I loved the governing body. I had developed a love for these people. Never met them. You can, we love Christ. You think of the apostles, you get a feeling for them as human beings, don't you? And I felt about those men, having looked at the pictures in the watchtowers and what have you, that I loved them. I developed this affection for them. Because they, you make allowances, don't you, for the mistakes that they made. But at the end of the day, I really had an affection for them. And so, anything that you were going to do which was going against the organisation, you were going against God. Definitely. The congregation was set up by Jehovah through the organisation. The local body of elders was an extension of it. If you're going to go against that, you're going against God. And all this is sort of kicking in. Now, it got to the point though, all the way through the sort of 70s, 80s, it was an elder, busy, 75 came and went. I suppose we're just too busy to notice it really. Make allowances for the society. It's been a mistake, but it's, onward and upward sort of thing.
95 was the turning.
With me it was, 94 I think it was when they altered the generation viewpoint. Something happened in me, something big time. I just felt personally responsible. I just felt personally guilty that I'd spent all these years telling people something that was wrong. It was false. I wish I could have gone back and just undone every conversation I'd ever had with anybody. I'd been a teacher in the congregation, I'd stood on the platform, teaching people, and I'd been a false teacher, and I felt personally guilty. The guilt was big time. My ministry almost sort of switched off overnight. I still went out, but it was all literally, I've said it before, it was like, look at the front cover of the Wake, it's a lovely bunny rabbit on it, isn't it, It was candy floss ministry, it really was. I couldn't talk about anything with any depth. And over the next few years, it sort of, the questions kept coming and spiralling down, So it got to the end of last year, 98, and we just went to the meetings. I don't know why really. We just looked at each other, didn't we, at the meetings and think,
wondered why we were there.
Why are we here? It's so empty. Nothing there. No spiritual depth to it. Almost walk into the meetings, say to Jehovah, well, I don't really know I'm going here. I can't think of any other way of expressing the faith to you. That's the only way I know. So off we went and sat down and then couldn't wait to get out. But at the end of it, that wasn't enough, was it? It couldn't keep us. So we just stopped going at end of December, early January. Things were busy anyway with business and whatever. A small business that was trying to expand. That's another story. But busy anyway. But I've still got this hole in me. Still got this hole in me. So, big do's, little do's, I decided to look on the internet. I've got questions, generation. If I can just answer this simple question about the generation, get my head around it, everything will be alright. Well, one of the first things I looked at was chapter 9 of Ray Franz's book, Crisis of Conscience. I saw it and I knew what it was, and I got an idea about, I didn't know much about Ray Franz at that time, I got an idea what I was letting myself in for, and I went to read that with a prayerful attitude. I felt guilty, I felt awful, but I sort of saying, look, please forgive me for reading this, if it's wrong, I'll instantly know and I'll just sort of throw it in the bin. But I've got to read this, just a one-off, and see what happens. Goodness me. I tell you, I felt like sort of just taking the knife out and cut my stomach open, and it all went, because not only did it answer the questions, big time, it also opened up a huge can of worms. It asked questions about the very nature of what my faith had been all these years. It was a terrible time. I felt for weeks, a couple of weeks, I was skulking around reading everything that I could get my hands on from that point on.
Bearing in mind that he wouldn't let me read it. He was like, it's just too much for you. You can't possibly read it. I thought, oh, for goodness sake, what is this stuff that he's reading? So he went off one day and he got this big wodge of paper, and I thought, well, I'm just going to read it. And so I started to read it, and almost immediately it didn't take me, that long to just appreciate that all these feelings that I'd had for so many years, everything was slotting into place, everything that I'd thought, it was just amazing. I mean, it was awful, it was gut-wrenching, it was terrible to think that we'd been in this organisation and been duped, but it was so much of a relief for me, and I took it on board, no problem whatsoever. But you really struggled, didn't you? Because Billy had approached it from a doctrinal point of view, it really was harder for him. And I think my saving grace was the fact that I just went with the flow, and so it was a lot easier for me to take all this on board.
I mean, you've got to bear in mind that as a witness, I can remember it being said to me as a young teenager, that really what witnesses are and what they believe is almost diametrically opposite to what the churches believe. You can almost think, well, the churches believe this. What's the opposite? Well, that's really what the truth is. And then to suddenly come to the realisation that it's the very opposite, that really the churches have had it right all these years in the main doctrines and the main fundamentals, and we've had it so wrong. It's a terrible feeling. I mean, Adam, my eldest son down here, I mean, when he found out, because it was only another week or so that I showed him it, he was walking on the bedroom, banging his head on the wall. You were gut-wrenched by how, because he was in the right reasons, It's a terrible thing, and nobody who's not been there can appreciate it. Yeah, time's obviously against us. It's a pity. If you've got another couple of hours, but anyway, where are we now? We read and read and read and read. We read Ray's books. In fact, I wrote to Ray. I got a lovely letter back from Ray. We have probably 8 or 9 full A5 Believer Arch files full of books, documents, stuff that we've downloaded off the internet, stuff we've had given to us. For about probably, I would think, 3 months, we have no connection with anybody. We just read. No actual first-hand discussion with anybody. We basically released ourselves, and big time. I read it more in a few months than we have for 40 years, and it got us out. But that wasn't the end. I had no idea in February of this year where it would lead to. That Christ was basically pulling. He'd been just put his finger down and touched us somehow. Eventually it got to the point where on the internet there were telephone numbers. Anthony, who's sat here, his website, Witness Aid, is excellent. It's good for a laugh as well. But the telephone numbers were there, so I contacted 3 people, and eventually through Pete Stanton here, we got hold of Ray and Dorothy. Now, almost like I was going to say, I don't know, mother. She mothers us, doesn't she? This kind of thing. And well, if you don't know Ray yet, you get to know Ray. He's a great bloke. Anyway, but we met these. We've had audio tapes, video tapes. We've had all sorts of stuff, and it's just like wonderful what we're coming up with and what's happening. The first time we went to a church with Ray and Dorothy, I was sat there thinking, well, yeah, I knew what to expect. I didn't feel too uncomfortable, but I just didn't expect what happened. I was sat there, and the altar call was made, and the pastor there, I don't know, it was just as if it was for me. I couldn't just, after four requests to come down, I just couldn't do it. So off I went down the front, And since then, I've had a wonderful commitment from Jesus to just tell me that it's real, I've had a wonderful experience that was just filled me with the love of God, the love of Christ. And I can see it happening in the whole family, the way that Jesus is working. It's tremendous. But as witnesses, we were supposed to be zealous. I never was, to be honest. We went through the motions a lot of the time. But we did it, you know, we were out there every week banging on the doors and doing it. Why can't we do it now? You know, why can't we put 120% into it? Because Christ deserves nothing less, does he? He's given us everything.
Yeah, and just to round that up, 3 weeks later I went forward and committed my life to Jesus. 2 of our children have done the same. The others are well on the way, but obviously, you know, all at different stages. So the 8 immediate members of our family are out. Last week we both got baptised, didn't we? Which was marvellous. We've met some wonderful, wonderful Christian friends. Ray and Dorothy, you know, top of the list. And we're just so happy that, you know, we've met everybody and that Jesus has called us out and brought us out of that awful organisation.
We literally thought, though, didn't we, that we were going to be sort of sad old yippers with no friends, you know, back into May, June time. That once you're out with the witnesses, you've no friends, they're all gone, haven't they? They all switch off anyway, like somebody's turned the light off. And nothing could be further from the truth. The wonderful people that we've met into it.
And we've managed to reach a lifelong friend and his wife and baby, and they're well out of it. He comes from a very large family, maybe 10, 15, and some of them are taking it on board, so it's just absolutely brilliant. It's onward and upward.
Yeah, we've got a nephew who's now in America, and bright lad. Had a lot of problems, but he's took it all on board. He's reading the Bible like it's with that passion. His girlfriend over there, Melissa, who was a lovely girl, didn't meet her personally, but I look at, she's just a wonderful girl. Never given her parents a minute's trouble out the whole 23 years of her life. And she read Ray's book, announced to her parents that, well, I'm not going to go to the meetings anymore. They gave her 10 minutes to get out. Literally 10 minutes out near here. And took a car off her so she couldn't even get to college or anything. You know, the very fact that a person who is a witness can feel that they can be allowed to do that, that Christianity is something that will allow that, is just mind-boggling, isn't it? And yet we've all been there, we've all done it. We're guilty for it, we're personally responsible for it. But let's just rely on the fact that the blood of Christ cleansed us from those ways. And
we've also managed to get my sister, my brother-in-law, her other son, her daughter, who's married with 2 children, they're out of it as well. So at the moment, because we're not disfellowshipped and we're not disassociated, we've still got contact with the witnesses, which, as we've said to quite a few of you here, we're trying to get as much mileage out of it before they actually clamp down on us, and try and reach as many as we can before they make it impossible for us to. So it's been marvellous, it's been wonderful.
We can feel the breath on the back of the neck from the elders at the moment, I think. They know we're up to something, but they can't prove it yet. Might send them this video. Anyway, time's beaten, so thanks very much for allowing us the opportunity to talk to you.